I just want to give a shout out, first of all, to people who have made my life mean something and my work means something. And people like Monica Simpson, who's now lead Sister Song. Girl, I helped Monica fight for that job, and I am so proud of her. I don't know what to do. Girlfriend, damn. I wish I could speak like you. And I know I wish I could sing like you. But in this movement, I've had a chance to see several generations. I mean, when I first became a feminist, I was mentored by women like Ruth Sykes, who had been an aide to Mary McLeod Bethune, you know, and knew Dorothy Height. I remember sitting in meetings with Dorothy Height, and they're the ones that told me to shut up and sit down and learn something, you know? And so I've had the joy of working with one of my colleagues, Toni Bond Leonard, who couldn't make it today because her husband is sick and in danger of losing his sight. And people like Dazon Dixon, who I met when she was one of them rowdy-ass teenagers and had her hair all spiked up and shit. And I was like, who is this punk child with tattoos? And stuff. So it has been a joy to be able to do the work that I've been able to do. But I also remember first meeting Billie Avery in 1983 at that first national conference on Black women's health issues. And she said something that has stuck with me forever. She said, when you shake up the bottom of the pyramid, the whole damn thing rocks. The top has no choice but to follow. And that's what I think we've done with the reproductive justice framework. We have shook up the bottom of this pyramid of injustice. And I see it proliferating in so many unexpected ways. I mean, in 1994, when that group of Black women sat around in that hotel room in Chicago and said, this pro-choice thing just ain't working for us. And we need to talk about what we just saw in Cairo when they were talking about human rights and how we can bring human rights home. And we created this whole framework called reproductive justice. We had no idea the power that we had unleashed. Because really, we were just trying to describe our own lived experiences. As a woman who was sterilized at 23, I was denied my right to have more children. And that pissed me the fuck off. And the only child I had was born out of incest. So I didn't even have the right to determine if and when I'd have sex. And that pissed me the fuck off. So just talking about the right to an abortion, important as it was, because I'd had one of them too, was so incomplete. Just so like, even if I had free abortions and they sent a Cadillac to take me to the clinic, I'd still be poor, oppressed, and sterile. But we had no idea when we created that framework that it was like, you know, one candle lighting 1,000 candles. And that's kind of how I see reproductive justice, because an old indigenous phrase was taught me one time. You know, a lit candle loses nothing by lighting another. You know, and that's how we have to serve. Understand that when we light our candles and we use it to light another candle, it lights another candle. Next thing we know, we got a whole world of flame, you know, caught on fire through our passion. And so, since 1994, I've watched this justice framework just take a fire. Now we're talking about, oh my God, can you keep it all? Disability justice, transformative justice, trans justice, food justice, health justice. Oh my God. People are saying, I don't just want my rights, I want justice. I don't want simple equality, I want justice, because I don't want to be equal to this bullshit you've been serving. I want justice. And so I'm really amazed. And I also want to thank people like Betsy and Marlene, who have been my sheroes. I mean, whenever I wanted to add words or analysis to this passion, I would always look to Betsy and Marlene, you know, and I still go around saying, well, if you want to know how something really works around population control, you got to get this woman named Betsy Hartman, you know, and they say, who is she? And why are you telling us about a white woman? I said, because she's the best. You know, screw this. I'm not playing no racial determinist bullshit. If it's the best, it's the best. That's the way it is. I really wanted to talk a little bit about reproductive justice because I've been intrigued how in that 20 years it has called so much attention to reproductive oppression. And I had this conversation just the other day out in California where I was saying that reproductive justice is meant to fight population control. And this white woman pushed back on me and she said, but we're not still dealing with sterilization abuse and stuff like that anymore, are we? I said, well, first of all, girlfriend, you know, when people do that to you, you have to recognize they're just your problematic allies. They're not your enemies. You got real enemies out here, okay? So don't confuse problematic allies with enemies, and don't be wasting your bullets on your allies. You may need them to save your life, okay? So I took the time to explain to her that back in the 1960s and 70s when we were talking about population control, it was wrong back then to restrict it to sterilization abuse, even though sterilization abuse was rampant back then, and that's when I got sterilized. Because we're talking about the manipulation and control of entire communities through the prison industrial complex, through immigration restrictions, through land use, through toxic neighborhoods, all of these ways, the school to prison pipeline, through Trayvon Martin and Renisha McBride. We are talking about population controls then and now. And they've never really changed the game. They've just disempowered us out of recognizing how deep the game is. And that's why reproductive justice was so powerful, because it brought all the tenets, all the little tentacles of the game together in one analysis and said you cannot isolate abortion from all these other human rights issues out here. You cannot isolate refusing to let me be a parent from all these other human rights issues. And even if I do succeed in becoming a parent, where's the safe and healthy neighborhood in which I can raise my child? You know? Now, I do have some concerns about the future of reproductive justice, and since I only have 2 minutes, maybe that's where I need to close with. I am concerned that as it becomes more popularized and more mainstreamed, that it runs the risk of being de-radicalized. Because I'm hearing people talk about reproductive justice without talking about the human rights basis on which it is based. And that pisses me off. Because if they reconfine us to only talking about rights under the US Constitution, we've already recognized that that white man's document will never deserve us. Ever. And that's a de-radicalization that we cannot afford. If we do not use the international human rights framework to claim all the rights that are due us as human beings, we'll always be sold short in this white supremacist system. So don't let us them impose a white supremacist construct on reproductive justice and call it reproductive justice. We ain't gonna let them get away with that. And let's be clear, I'm giving a lecture here at the college on Monday around appropriate whiteness because my new work is about naming the white supremacist impulses that keep us from building a human rights movement. I'm really happy to do that. I really think it's very necessary to do that because if we're talking about building a movement where everybody's at the table, then every issue must be at the table. And the issue that is most likely to be kicked off the table is the fundamental relationship between reproductive oppression and white supremacy. So thank y'all for letting me be here today. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Dazon. Thank all of y'all.